Hi, everyone. My name is Harsha Rajasimha. I am the founder, CEO of Jeeva Informatics Solutions. I will talk to you a little bit about diversity, equity, inclusion in clinical research in general, and the diversity, equity, inclusion aspect of clinical research. And in particular, how Indo US Rare is addressing a major gap in the space, as well as how Jeeva is innovating with a technology platform to enable patients to participate in clinical research from wherever they are, irrespective of their zip code. So from a clinical research and innovation standpoint, there has been a significant focus on phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials. Usually these are required phases of clinical trials before a drug, device, or therapy is approved for use by patients in a particular country. You know, the Food and Drug Administration, everyone would have heard of, but also the European Medicine Agency and the Japanese agency are the major regulatory agencies that review and approve novel innovative medicines. But all countries have their own national agencies that review and approve medicines for marketing in their respective countries as well, although they are not necessarily well equipped to approve novel medicines. They are more drug repurposing and approved medicines. And so to truly enable diversity and equity, we want to be able to speed up the process of getting more medicines through the regulatory process. And once they are approved, they can go through phase 4 clinical trials, as well as observational real-world evidence studies, which are very critical before a interventional clinical study can be started for a given drug or device. This includes the patient registry, natural history study, and other observational data collection studies, which help the clinical researchers really understand the disease and its physiology and its how it progresses, so they can better design drugs and therapies for the patients affected. And obviously the focus for today is multiple system atrophy, but there is also 7,000 other rare diseases, as well as multiple other common and complex conditions that also require the same innovation and clinical research. So we need to really tap into the common challenges affecting these different rare diseases. So if you look at the process of getting a new treatment approved for any given disease, typically it has to go through protocol design, site selection, get necessary regulatory approvals in the countries where the study is to be designed and conducted, configuring the study in the software and databases, enrolling patients, which is often where there is a long delay, which can cause a significant challenge for the sponsors of these clinical trials. And assuming the sponsor is able to find and enroll sufficient number of patients at the clinical trial sites, the study progresses into clinical assessments, collecting the data related to how effective, safe a given drug or device is, and routine follow-ups throughout the course of that study to ensure enough evidence is generated. And patients have to be informed throughout the study about what the study, how is it progressing, and the results of that with respect to the patient itself. And finally, if there is a intervention that has to be submitted for regulatory approvals, that can then be reviewed and either approved or sent back for further research. So the whole process can take 5 to 7 years once it gets into phase 1 to get through phase 2 and phase 3. And there are innovative trial designs which can help speed up this process significantly as well. The challenge, however, is that most of these clinical trials are conducted in the United States and the European Union. As you can see in this map on the right side of my screen, is the map in red color. As you can see, The United States and Europe are in the red coloring in this map, and the rest of the world collectively account for less than 2% of all clinical trials happen in India, for example. And that's why we founded the Indo US Organization for Rare Diseases to help bridge this gap between the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere to help engage patients with diverse backgrounds. As you can imagine, patients with different genetic backgrounds, race, ethnicity, gender, age, and so on respond very differently to each the same treatment. So not everyone have the same level of absorption of a drug, metabolism, and excretion. Different people respond differently. And so it's very important to ensure that during the clinical trial process, the sponsors and the sites are able to recruit patients from diverse backgrounds to ensure the target population will benefit and it's safe and effective for everyone involved, and not just for a subsection of the trial participants. And so the Indo US Organization for Rare Diseases is a membership-driven organization, and we are really honored to work with the Defeat MSA group, and they are a member organization of IndoUSrare Patient Alliance. The way we work with each patient group is by connecting the foundation and the patients, individual patients located in the United States with their counterparts and other stakeholders in the Indian subcontinent and vice versa. So our patient alliance includes members from USA, United Kingdom, Australia, India, and other countries. So we invite you to consider joining our patient alliance if this might be of interest. Now, other programs at the Indo-US organization include the Corporate Alliance. We have a significant focus on education, awareness, and research programs, including a newsletter that disseminates educational, informational content, mainly focused on our alliance members and their priorities, and making sure the patients on the other side of the continents are learning and informed about the progress and opportunities that exist for them. And we are also involved in the advocacy, both at the US legislative government level as well as on the Indian side. So we are very focused on the impact in terms of the various metrics. We measure against the number of patient foundations, the individual patient members that are represented by our alliance, as well as the number of diseases that we cover and the number of countries that we are having an impact in. And this includes all of our partners and sponsors that we like to thank. Now, the challenge, however, even if we were to improve the diversity, is that patients and families have a lot of burden in being able to find clinical trial. And once they find a study, coordinating travel to get to the clinical trial site, missing work or school, and being able to find childcare if there are siblings at home that may need childcare, and find a caregiver to go with the patient to a clinical trial site, and embarking on transit and becoming informed and enrolling into a study. This is not a trivial task for either patients or for the clinical study teams. How can we help reduce this burden? The key considerations in enabling access to clinical research for patients worldwide or even within any country is to consider whether each of these activities, such as informed consent, can be done at patient home from the comfort of their home on a internet-enabled device, or do they really need to show up at a clinical trial study site where they have to have an in-person consultation with the physician and sign a consent on paper. Similarly, there is routine questionnaires that the study team would allow to get responses from every patient in a study, as that's what enables the clinical study teams to collect patient-reported outcomes It's really important now, as FDA has recommended, that the clinical trials gather this data on how the patient is feeling with a therapy or an intervention. It's really helping the patient, and how is it helping, and to what extent? And these are usually done through questionnaires or surveys, which can this be done from patients at home, or do they really need to come into a clinic? Can clinical assessments be done from home? As you can imagine, not all of these assessments and data collection can be done remotely, as some of them may require medical procedure, such as a diagnostic test or imaging or other laboratory-based testing, which may require, which may make the in-person travel unavoidable. But to the extent that it is avoidable, technology can come to rescue. And so what's necessary is a technology platform that can flexibly allow patients and study teams to conduct some of these activities either from home or from site, based on patient preference and the family's convenience. To do that, we at Jeeva developed a software as a service platform that essentially enables the study teams to do screening of patients, because not all patients might be eligible for a given clinical trial. And it's important to screen and for inclusion exclusion criteria, to screen and identify the right patients who match for a given clinical trial. And once there is a match, the patients and families can review the informed consent at their own convenience on a browser-based application, whether on a smartphone, tablet, or PC, in a bring your own device fashion. And then as they learn more about the study by watching videos, by reading and learning about the clinical study, if they wish to enroll, the patient can make the determination whether the patient feels the benefit of participating in the study far outweighs the risks involved and the burden involved. And that's something the patient can discuss with the family as well as with the physician. And if volunteer to participate in the study can sign up electronically from wherever they are, without having to go to a clinical trial site, which may be located in a far off country. And then the study teams can collect the responses to questionnaires by creating the questionnaire using a drag and drop interface. And it's very important to make sure that the patient has enough opportunity to ask questions, understand what this clinical study is all about, how their samples and data are going to be used, and then make an informed decision whether to participate or not. And it cannot be a coercion, of course, and hence it's important to allow that discretion and allow the patients to make that decision if they wish to enroll. But also have the ability to ask questions and have interactions in a bi-directional manner. And then if there are any lab reports that may need to be shared, that can be done easily. And a live interactive video conferencing communication with the study team at any time is very crucial. So enabling all of these modules in a single login, without requiring one to use a different email system, SMS system, and a video conferencing system. All of these can be done from a single login. That's very important. And from their own device, without requiring that everyone have to use a specific type of a brand or a model of a device. If this can be used on any browser-enabled device, that can be very, very helpful in increasing participation and equity and diversity and inclusion as well. So before we conclude and allow opportunity for any questions, I would like to walk you through quickly on how you can find and enroll a clinical study. It's very important to note that for most rare diseases, the number of clinical trials that's going on is really encouraging right now. 95% of the rare diseases do not have any approved uh, therapies. And so the best option and hope for most patients is to enroll in a clinical trial that they qualify for after discussing with their physician, so that it's better than the standard of care by definition. If you are matching for a clinical trial, you should strongly consider the possibility of enrolling in a study, because by definition, these are not approved by the FDA unless it shows significant promise compared to the current standard of care, especially for those who meet the inclusion-exclusion criteria. And so you should definitely give this enough consideration before enrolling or declining one. But the key challenge is, how do you identify a clinical trial? Oftentimes, people living, especially outside of the United States and Europe, are not aware that they can gain free treatment access to a potentially life-saving or significantly helpful therapy at no cost to them during the course of a clinical trial, especially if it's a gene therapy, which are a one-time treatment. It can be curative. It can help you for 10, 15, 20 years if it works, right? So it can offer significant opportunity to improve your quality of life. So the way you can find a clinical trial is you go to this website, clinicaltrials.gov, on any browser. And from the browser, you can search for a condition, in this case, multiple system atrophy, that I'm typing here. And then when I click on search, you can then see all the clinical trials for multiple system atrophy, which currently there are 133 studies. Now, if I apply the filters, recruiting, enrolling, active, and not yet recruiting, and apply, that 133 comes down to 63 studies. Now, if you are an adult between the age of 18 and 64, you can apply that extra filter here, and you can also say apply. Now it's still 63, which means almost all the MSA clinical trials are adult. And if you like to see on a global map where these clinical trials are ongoing, you will see that 34 trials in the United States, 21 in the European Union, 9 in China, and a couple here and there, in Canada, Middle East, Russia, and Australia. So you can now decide, based on where you are located, which of these might be of easy access to you. And then you can now reach out to click on that specific clinical trial and look at specific location where this particular clinical study can be accessed at a trial site. And you can reach out to the contact information that is provided usually at the bottom of this here. In this case, in France, here is the email address and phone number. So I strongly encourage you to review these clinical trials and identify those that might help you. And so with that, I conclude my talk saying thank you for this opportunity, and I feel free to reach out to me for any questions. Here is my email address and phone number. I invite you to consider communicating with the Indo US Organization for Rare Diseases. They are here to help you connect with resources on a global scale, as well as with Jeeva, if you are considering any clinical research study that we can help with our technology platform. Thank you very much for listening, and happy to take any questions.